Hey, welcome to the Body Wise podcast. I am Beth Trickett. Yes, there's been some changes around here. It was a really big summer for me. So, first of all, I got divorced and I'm back to using my original name. I don't really like the term maiden name. So, Beth Trickett, that is my name. And I'll tell you, it's been a wild ride. There's been so much that's been opening up for me, so much healing, so much growth, so much stepping into my power and out of so many limiting beliefs and things that were holding me back. So just feeling such a renewal and so much excitement too about the things that I'm here to share, that I'm here to step into. It feels like things have really come in at a whole new level. And there's just been so much clarity and growth and focus coming up for me. So lots of healing work, lots of inner work happening, and really reviewing relationships too. And I notice that this is something that a lot of my clients are doing right now. A lot of the things that I'm guiding people through, really understanding our place in relationships. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I realized when I was reviewing this is that from a very early age, I was the emotional buffer. So I often was the one who was looked to have the wisdom, to have the encouragement, or to offer somebody some advice or some healing to help people to feel better. And this was a pattern that really went back to childhood. I grew up with a mom. My dad passed away when I was young. So it was a very intense relationship with my mom. It was like the two of us. We were always kind of helping each other, really lending a deep ear. And it felt like, like I was doing that counseling, that healing, that being that guide early on. And what I noticed is that I tended to step into that role in a lot of my relationships. Sometimes being with people who weren't so emotionally available. Like I was the feeler, I was the emotions in that relationship, I was the sensitive one. And maybe you've been called the sensitive one, the one who feels everything. Or maybe you had a parent growing up where they would confide in you or relied on you to help them to feel better or to counsel them at times. So I find that this is often the path of people who are intuitive, empaths, big feelers, healers, however you want to describe yourself. And I think it's so easy to write this off as there's something wrong with me. Taking on so much energy too in this role, like really walking into a room and before someone speaks, knowing if they're going to be in a bad mood, right? Like maybe before your partner comes home, like you can sense that, oh, this person has had a bad day, or you can feel that there might be some tension happening when they come home and when you have that initial meeting with them, how maybe you can feel your body even tightening up with anticipation for the potential emotions or big emotions that they might have that day. And I think it's so easy to see this as a weakness, to see this as, for me, it felt like I was the emotional dumping ground for a lot of people. And I was like, why can't I just not feel all of this emotion and energy all the time? Like, when can I turn it off and not go into the grocery store and sense that the cashier is grieving or having a really rough day? And perhaps you've always just read the room and read the energetic, the emotional forecast of the room, And you can feel when something is off. Like there's certain people that are just harder to be around because of that energy and because of their emotions. And I think also because of who we become with them, who we naturally step into, what role we play when we're around people that are more emotionally unstable or not as comfortable with their emotions. And we can kind of be that buffer. So I'm interested if you're identifying with that, if that rings true, because I know that was certainly my path. And the thing with this is that it can feel so heavy. It can even cause us pain and illness in our body if we're constantly taking on all these emotions, all this energy that isn't ours. And I find there's often a level of blame that accompanies this too. Like, this is my fault, or like, I, I just need to learn to not be this way, or I need to learn how to not be so sensitive. If I could just turn it off, or maybe you find yourself just avoiding crowds or avoiding family events or certain friends because it's just easier to not put yourself into that position. I know for a long time before I learned more about energy and how to work with it, I would just avoid malls and large stores and big crowds because it would just absolutely exhaust me and drain me to be in those situations. And there were certain people that I would avoid too because I just knew that I would feel cranky and irritated or angry. I would start to feel myself starting to criticize things or have more of a down view when that was certainly not my personality and what I was naturally drawn to. So, one of the things that, especially this summer, as I was reviewing my relationships and my role in my relationships, I started to see firsthand that the more I allowed myself to process those emotions, to have those really big feelings, to really go into the grief, to go into the frustration, the resentment, and to allow myself to feel those things and to start to understand what they were telling me. Because emotions often have messages for us to help us to understand why we're allowing them the space in our body. And I realized that the more I started to process, the more I allowed myself to feel, the more I started to think that maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe it's these other people who are so uncomfortable with emotions or who are so comfortable with me that they feel like they can park their big emotions here and then just kind of quietly tiptoe away and leave them with me to deal with. I started to allow myself to feel it all. And on the other side of that, what I noticed was that there was so much confidence and power and owning my voice and finally stepping into the kind of leader, the kind of guide, the kind of energy worker that I saw myself as, but that I wasn't fully embodying. And I realized that sensitivity holds within its nucleus so much power. So if you have the power to read a room without even really thinking about it, or to read a crowd, to understand the temperature, the atmosphere of that crowd, or of that person who you're about to engage with before they even speak, that's incredible. That's being so tuned in that if you can tune in that much to somebody else, That if you can just turn that around and start to tune into yourself at that same level, that's what I was starting to do with all of this healing. It suddenly wasn't about the other person. It wasn't about anything that needed to be fixed. It was about me. It was about my processing, my healing, my using this sensitivity to see that there was all this power, this confidence, this inner drive inside of me that was scared to come out. It was scared to be as big as I knew that it could be. And this stuff doesn't feel like our natural role. If our natural role is my first instinct being around somebody is, what do you need? What do you need? How can I step outside of myself and give that to you? And that can so easily be our role since childhood, of the provider of other people's needs at the expense of our own. How often do you stop and say, what do I need right now? What do I need most right now? It can be so natural to be with this other person, trying to meet their needs, feeling responsible for them, like all these things that are subconsciously running through our mind, because that was what helped to keep you safe as a child. That was what earned your place in your family. That was your role. That was your identity. But what would happen if you took that level of hypervigilance, that level of noticing, awareness, of reading the energy, and you turned it around and you gave it to yourself? It might feel like an odd thing or a big ask or you got to be kidding me, because it might feel really hard to connect to yourself. And that's so many of the clients that I work with. They come in and we talk about, okay, what does your intuition want? What does your body want? And I don't know. I can't feel that. I don't know. And that's perfectly normal if your focus has been focused outside of you, if it's been on other people. What do you need versus what do I need? Or, hey, body, what do you need? What do you need most right now? And it can be so hard to access your intuition, to access that inner knowing, that inner voice, when you have been so conditioned to be outside of yourself. And this is such a beautiful journey when you're ready to take it, of coming back home to you. This was a lot of what I was working on this summer, was taking myself to deeper and deeper levels of this inner knowing, of this inner focus, of not being rude to the people around me, but starting to prioritize myself. And you know what happened in a lot of my relationships is that they got better. That you could feel like the person was, it was like a sigh of relief. Like, okay, she's finally not trying to take care of me or protect me or anticipate my needs. People can feel when you're all in their energy like that. And the more you step away, the more you come back to yourself, it leaves room for them to grow, for you to grow and heal. And you'd be surprised by how things can shift and change. And some relationships, as I discovered, just needed to fall away. They weren't going to change. They weren't going to shift. Sometimes relationships are born on that codependence of somebody is taking care of me. Somebody is my emotional buffer. Somebody is my feeler so that I don't have to do the feeling. But you know, the more that you connect to yourself, the more that you allow for the stillness, for the self-connection, for the question of what do I need right now? What feels good to me? It opens up so much space for that inner truth to emerge, for your soul blueprint to fully express itself, to start to really feel into why you came here and what you're here for, and to see yourself as so much more than the emotional support of someone else or the person who is everybody's shock absorber. You start to see your own strengths and your own powers that were shadowed for so long by everybody else's stuff. And it's this beautiful awakening inside of you. So coming back to your body is everything. I'm not saying that it's easy, but once you start to learn, once you start to connect, once you start to come there more often, it'll feel more natural. You'll start to understand your needs. You'll start to make better decisions. You'll start to really understand what it is that you truly desire. And it'll start to feel easier to lean in and to give yourself those things. So if you would like help doing this, I put together 3 very short audios. They're in total under an hour, and it teaches you the steps to coming back to your body, to starting to feel more connected, to making a lot easier decisions, to understanding what it is that you want. And on a very practical, physical level, feeling lighter, more peaceful, more calm, more relaxed, and able to really feel into your response versus just quickly snapping or reacting. This is called Embody. I will put a link to it below. I'm also working on some other things to help to support you in fully making this journey back to yourself, starting to prioritize your own needs without feeling bad, and stepping into your power, really owning the fact that if you've been called too much, that's actually an amazing compliment. So we have to start taking the power back around some of these words and some of the judgments that we felt around being sensitive or being an empath or a big feeler or a healer. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love any feedback in the comments, or feel free to reach out to me on social media. I have a brand new handle. It's at the Beth Trickett. So at the Beth Trickett. That's how you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. And I would love for you to share this with someone that you feel like could really benefit from this. So help your sensitive friends find their power. See that sensitivity is a superpower. It is a gift, not something that we want to stuff down or ignore, something that we really want to step into. And in the future episodes, I'll be helping you to do that even more. So thank you so much for joining me on the Body Wise podcast, and I will catch you next time.